Órale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. I'm your host, Jorge Martin. And Familia, we are live on YouTube. Please make sure to give us a like and subscribe. A little thumbs up, por favor. Really appreciate it. And also make sure, if you can do me a favor, follow me at Jorge Martin17 on Twitter. And I'll do a little more stuff at the end. But right now, Familia, we have got un invitado de lujo that is a really big treat for you. Now that we're in the off season, it's a good time to kind of bring on some fantasy analysts that I've met throughout the last couple years, and I consider many of them mis amigos. This is one of them. He's one of my favorite people in the industry. He's the founder of not one but two podcasts, the Fantasy Nightcap and Collective Knowledge. He's also the co-founder of ffcollective.com. I was happily a guest on the Collective Knowledge a couple months ago and just had a blast. So muchas gracias otra vez for having me. And he's bringing on guests on that show for a while. And this month, I think it's been really cool. He's been honoring Black History Month by inviting Black content creators in the fantasy industry throughout the month of February. Another important thing, he is also the co-founder of Polly's Playoff. It's a charity tournament that raises money for Alzheimer's research. And I was happily to play a part in that. I didn't win, but I'm good. I participated. And I think I made it all the way to the last weekend. And I already signed up for last year. So Familia, if you haven't yet, please make sure to put that. I'm going to drop that into the show information below. So he's also a girl dad, and still somehow he finds time to be a baller when he gets out on the hardwoods. So we'll ask him a little about that. But so Familia, bienvenido to mi amigo, Shane Barrett. Oh, by the way, follow him at FF Shane B. Shane, estás en tu casa. Thank you for joining me.
Man, Jorge, I don't even know how to follow up that intro. That was beautiful. Thank you, sir. And yeah, I did want to warn you, the Familia, that if Collective Knowledge was any indicator of how long this show might go, you guys might want your popcorn, a pipe, multiple drinks. Like, this could go for a while because me and Jorge like to talk to each other.
That was one, it was one of those things. Like, I definitely enjoyed it. And then I've heard, I've subsequently heard the ones that have followed, and I've been like, oh man, I was long-winded that day. So
it's okay, man. It was a lot of fun.
As I love to say, yeah, us Latinos, we love to tell stories, and we love to share stories. But man, mi amigo. So first off, how's the off season treating you?
Rough, man.
Oh yeah, you were playing hurt last night on your show.
Yeah, I've been sick like 2 or 3 times in the last 2 months, so it's kicking my butt. But from an actual content creation standpoint, it's been fun so far. So just getting kicked off, got some really big guests coming up on the shows, and like you already mentioned, the Black History Month series for Collective Knowledge has been going, and it's been a ton of fun.
And yeah, you know what? I wanted to ask you about that. I thought it was a great idea for you to do that. And, as I've been listening to it, I mean, it's so great to hear everybody just, free flowing ideas. Obviously, one of the people, you could tell your comfort level with everybody. Obviously, our buen amigo Troy King was one of the first guests, and it was like friends having a beer over, in the backyard. But I think one of the great things that's kind of come out of that series is that it shows how much common ground we all have. It doesn't matter the background. It doesn't matter where you grew up, or what race or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
We all love football, we all love sports, and there's a lot of other common ground so first off, I wanted to ask, is that kind of what you were going for, and kind of what have you enjoyed the most about that series?
Yeah, I mean, really what I was going for was just to kind of honor the month. And I don't know if you saw the show last night, or the audio for it will go out Monday, but with Will, he's mentioned it, and our good old friend at Going for Two, Gladys Louise Tyler, has mentioned that it's not just a month. Black history is forever. And I kind of like it because, to me, I'm trying to give Black content creators a way to share their story and how they're making steps in Black history. And I feel like I've done that, and it's been really fun just to see, like, how Laquan started, how Troy started, how Tara started, how Will started, how they all started, and it was all different, but it all comes from a love of football and sports. So, yeah, the whole goal was just to get them out there and let people hear how they got started in the fantasy industry and whatnot. So I've really enjoyed it.
You know what? And actually, you know what? Laquan and I were able to share an episode leading up to the Super Bowl because
Nice.
you know, it was
Both Rams fans,
yeah,
right?
both Rams fans. So I had he was my Rams fan, and I also had a different show with a Bengal fan. So and she's a
Nice.
content creator doing a lot of stuff surrounding the Bengals and the NFL in general. But I mean, you know, that's a cool thing, and you know what, and LQ and I have talked, and I was Troy and so many others.
Yeah.
I think that's the great thing. I think if there's one positive that's come out of the on you know, come out of COVID through the fantasy industry is all the people who've kind of come out
Yeah.
out of the blue and started, all the content creators that have come out. And I think and that was my goal with funding the FFB, as I mentioned when we were on the show, is just the fact that I want, you know, I felt like we wanted more diversity in voices.
Yeah.
I wasn't seeing any Latinos out there. You know, I was starting to see some African American folks. I wanted to see more women. I just wanted to kind of celebrate the diversity because so many people just love football, and I
Yeah.
love that. I love that you're highlighting that. I just love that you're giving
Yeah.
everybody a stage.
Thank you.
No, and so as you know, as a minority, you know, as a minority, and you know, if you want to, you know, if you want to talk about how if around Cinco de Mayo, you want me to tell you how it's actually more of an American holiday than a Mexican holiday, and how Mexican Independence Day is actually in September.
Yes,
We could talk
I
about
do
those.
know that actually. People always, so fun story. I worked at a taco bar in college. I was a catering and delivery driver. Cinco de Mayo was by far like our biggest day. It was nuts. Like I would work in the morning from like 8 o'clock until 2 o'clock. I'd go to class for a couple hours, and then I'd come back and I'd work from like 4 until 10 o'clock. And then finally, when we were done, because that's how many deliveries we'd have. When we were finally done, like we would all go to a pizza place down in middle of Alabama, Mountain Brook, Alabama, and we'd all have pizza and beer. And it was just like, we did it. We made it through Cinco de Mayo. But I do know that it is not Mexican Independence Day. It's celebrating a battle and a victory. I can't remember which one, but it's celebrating the victory in a battle that Mexicans had. And that's why it was on May 5th. So I do know it's not Mexican Independence Day.
And
But
you know
yeah,
what's
I would love to have you come on Cinco de Mayo.
sure.
And I've seen firsthand how it's Americanized for sure. That was really the point of my little tangent there, was like, oh, it's Americanized big time.
I've always kidded that the best place to go to on St. Patrick's Day is a Mexican restaurant, because they'll still give you green beer, green Coronas, Pacificos, and those and whatnot. But and also the other thing that I found out, my father, my rest in peace. He was born on May 6th, and so we always knew that going out for his birthday, if we wanted to go to a Mexican restaurant, we would not have a problem finding a table, because everybody just had their, you know,
Done it
everybody
the day
kind of
before.
yeah. So
Yeah.
they're on to pizza and all the other things. So that was always cool. So awesome. Well, I wanted to also jump into Polly's playoffs. So this is
Okay.
this going to be year 3?
Yeah.
So
Yep. Year 3.
I know you've shared other places, but if you could just give us a brief summary on kind of like, you know, your motivation behind it, kind of like the
Yeah.
inspiration, and you know, if there's any sneak peek into what you're looking to accomplish this year.
Yeah, definitely. So reason it started was I was actually my first year being in Scott Fish Bowl. I was actually in Scott Fish's division. We were in the Lego
Oh,
division 2 years ago. So I got to know Scott pretty well from being in his chat, and now I consider him a really good friend and mentor, especially when it comes to running a charity tournament. But once I got to know him and know kind of what Scott Fishbowl was really about, I was like, I finally got a platform where I feel like I can do something. So I was like, I need to do something. I got to do something with this platform. I've got 3,000 followers at the time. Let's do something meaningful with it. And as most of you know that have played in it, my wife's grandmother had and passed away from Alzheimer's. And so it's a very near and dear cause to our heart. And once I kind of figured it out, I was like, all right, that's what we're doing. We're going to do a tournament to end Alzheimer's, because it helps us raise money to continue and help find that cure. My wife is sitting over there, so she's probably going to cringe when I say these stats because they're probably wrong to her. But it is the only disease in the top 12 of all diseases that are the top 12 killers, at least, that doesn't have a cure or any way to slow it down. And without that, what? Yeah, she's looking at me right now. It's close enough. It sounds better that way. But basically, all of the proceeds from Polly's Playoff go directly to the Alzheimer's Association so that we can help find a cure. So that one day we'll be able to cure that horrible, horrible disease that's taken too many. It's top 10? Okay. It's the only one in the top 10 that doesn't have a cure.
Oh, it went up in a couple. But no, it's awesome. And, I have a couple of people in my life that are currently battling that, and a very important lady who I consider like another mother to me, and another
I remember us talking about that one.
Another friend, someone who when I was 17 years old, the whole family just kind of took me in, was friend with the son, eventually dated one of his daughters, and still very close to the family to this day. I still consider they consider me a part of the family. I consider them a part of my family, but just great people. But yeah, so it's thank you for doing that. So I appreciate
absolutely.
that. So not to get too heavy on something that's kind of light, but so since to kind of lighten up the mood a little bit. But for the tournament, how many
sneak peeks?
Yeah, just kind of sneak peek.
So goal for fundraising this year is going to be 7,500. I think last year we hit about 6. I don't think my wife's happy with that number. We're going to get to 10K eventually. She's just got to make it realize it's going to be a slower burn to get there. But 7,500 is the goal this year. Unless I get more and need to expand it, it'll probably be 240 people again. It's super flex tiered PPR again. I'm flirting with a couple of different ideas in my head. Because a bunch of people asked me last year, like, is this best ball or is it going to be a managed league? So that may be something, hint, hint, wink, wink, to look out for. Another thing is, like, it's year 3, so I thought about doing like something with IDP in year 3, like ID3 or something like that. I don't know. Maybe throw in an IDP flex or two just to get people a little more acclimated to that side of the ball, just to kind of see what people thought, and then maybe back off of that too. I love IDP personally, but I know it's not for everybody, so it's kind of why I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. So those are kind of some ideas I'm floating around in my head right now.
It's like kickers, and and I know talking about the inspiration from Scott Fish. He's such a mad scientist this time of year. I know he's cooking up some crazy stuff for the Scott Fish Bowl 12. So love it. I can't wait to play. I mean, I've never done IDP. I've kind of given it the Heisman over the years, but though Aaron Donald in the Super Bowl just further convinced me of the importance of defense. So as he always does.
Well,
so.
and that's kind of why, Jorge, I'm like, I don't want to like force it down people's throat, but like maybe just a little dash of it, like maybe 1 or 2 players per roster, to where it's like it's the top 40 play or top 20 players defensively in each league that you're picking from. And that way you're not having to roster too many. You can pick from guys that you know their name. But adds to the scoring because I just love points in fantasy football. Like I just want there to be as many points as possible. So that's kind of why I like ADP anyway. So I that's kind of my thinking is we'll sprinkle it in. You don't have to have too much knowledge. You can just know the NFL and probably get away with having a decent IDP player or two and add a little more scoring. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, as I teased at the beginning, a baller on the hardwoods.
yeah,
What's your NBA team?
it's the Dallas Mavericks actually.
Ooh, which do you have a player? Do you have player
Yeah,
from?
so my all-time favorite player is Dirk. And
Oh,
that's why I'm a huge Mavericks fan. So I love Dirk, fell in love with him when I was a kid, and got to see him live in Atlanta. Was that junior? I think it was sophomore year of high school. Dad got me birthday tickets, and I got to go see him play the Hawks. I will never forget that game because someone called Deshaun Stevenson a terrorist from
hi.
like a couple rows behind us. And Stevenson just yelled into the crowd, F you, right back at the person. And me and my dad were sitting there and just saw him yell like right over us. It was hilarious. But then I also saw myself on Sports Center the next day because when I think Dirk actually hit a 3 in overtime, I jumped up in my seat like this and was, yeah. And the camera was right on me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
That's awesome. And
so yeah.
how incredible him being able to give Dallas a championship.
Mhm.
Beating.
Which do you know Mad Dad's 14, I think it is, on Twitter? I think
Yeah.
his name is Danny Ocean. Yeah. He's becoming my best friend right now because he keeps tweeting about Dirk and the run that he made to win the championship that year. Because Dirk and the Mavericks went 12-3 against Kobe, RIP, Westbrook, Harden, and Durant, all on the Thunder. The Spurs, and I believe it was the Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan Spurs. And then they beat LeBron, Bosh, and Wade in the finals. Like, that's one of the greatest playoff runs ever. And they capped it off with a championship, Dallas's first championship. So, yeah. Dirk's my favorite player all time.
Oh man, that's enough to get you. Now, I have a feeling I know who your favorite current player is, but please, I'm gonna you can give me one guess and and I'll tell you if I had it right.
It's probably it's between Luka and Steph, honestly.
I
So,
had Luca.
and
I had
then
Luca.
yeah, so and then a close one behind that is Clay Thompson. So I do have a inkling towards the Warriors because I just love watching Steph and Clay play. Like I've learned a lot in my game from watching the two of them play. So I really enjoy watching them. And then Luca is just so much fun to watch. So those are my
I will
players, man.
I will tell you, Luca, a good friend of mine, a high school buddy. I've known him since we were 14 years old. Um, Both dyed in the wool Magic Johnson honks. Both of them,
Okay,
Magic,
yeah.
our favorite player of all time. Texted me about a month ago. He
Hmm.
goes, I have a feeling I'm about to drop a bomb on you. But is there a possibility? He said, "Is there a possibility that Luca is better than Magic?" And I was just like,
Wow.
I was just like,
Wow.
I was like, my buddy, then Clyde. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like our 14-year-old selves are very upset with you right now. So
Yeah.
both of us. So but uh, he's got an outside shot and he's a playmaker. I mean, he's not going to get 15, 20 assists in a game, but
The funny thing
very.
is I really think like if he didn't have to score to keep them in games, which I feel like right now he does, I think he's got the skill set to get 15 or 20 assists. Is he ever going to do it? Probably not. But his scoring is just so dominant that like it takes off the shine, if you will, off his passing, which is also excellent.
And it really does. I think he's such. I mean, he's such a unicorn by himself,
Mm-hmm.
and such a beautiful player to begin with. But yeah, you forget what a great facilitator he is right now. I mean, and so many
Yeah.
guys right now are such good passers. I mean, you mentioned Steph. Yeah, you know, Westbrook. I know it hasn't been pretty. I mean, the NBA
Mm.
is the NBA in LA is very mad at the Lakers.
Yeah.
But you know, we still got LeBron. But I mean, so many guys are great passers. But yeah, I think it's such an underrated trait with Luka, and I think all these. I don't think it's very long before he's in the MVP talk, if he's not
Oh,
in
yeah.
it this year. So and so who do you think? Yeah, looking in your crystal ball, because the NBA playoffs, especially the games, you know, the deciding games, the play, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the can be some of the greatest drama that we have. Who do
Yeah.
you see kind of coming out?
Man, I've been struggling with this question since I saw it. Um, hmm. Just because I haven't been able to watch a ton of NBA. Um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with a dark horse out of the West and pick Memphis.
Ooh, but you
I'm
know
gonna
what?
pick.
That's a hell of a team.
I'm gonna pick Memphis. I really like the little that I have seen and heard. I like what I'm hearing out of Memphis. So I'm gonna go Memphis. I think John Morant's just so good. So I'm gonna go Memphis out of the West against Brooklyn in the East.
Oh, they're
I
gonna figure it
really
out.
really love the Ben Simmons James Harden trade. To be completely honest with you, for both teams, I think both it was a win-win trade. Um, I think Ben getting out of Philly is going to be good for him in the long run, and I think he's going to be able to assimilate into that team um, relatively quickly. I mean, they're dealing with the Kyrie situation still, but having him and with Kyrie and Harden, Blake Griffin, all the guys that they've got there, like I think they're just going to be too powerful to really get a shot or really get someone that knocks them off. So I'm going Brooklyn versus Memphis in the finals, and I'm going Brooklyn winning the finals.
And then yeah, and then Durant kind of moves up a few spots on the
Yeah.
all-time greats when he gets that. I mean, I love what like you know, been so football focused for you know the last since July really, but
Yeah.
obviously since September, since the first week of the real regular season, and I just look at I mean every time I look at the NBA, it's like you know Steph and Clay are doing something spectacular, and so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of look at I think it could be them, and I'd love to see. I'd kind of love to see Giannis, the Greek Freak, one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Matty Daddy, ¿cómo
Yeah.
estás? ¿Cómo estás, brother? Hello. Oh, we got got the Grizz. We got the Grizz. He's with you on the Grizz. Well, I'm hoping I got a buddy who just started working for the Bucks, so I'm
Nice.
hoping for him, and then I'd love that would be an incredible series. I think there's so much beautiful talent in the NBA that I just think whoever gets in the finals, as long as it's not like a battle of attrition last year where it's like whoever was healthy at the end
Yeah.
got
That's
there.
what. So that's actually kind of what in the back of my head kept me from picking the Suns. Is like CP3 just got hurt. And like he played in the All-Star game, but he was doing nothing with his right hand. So it's like, man, you got to get that healthy before I can trust you to make a run. But on that note, I would love to see them. Like CP3 is one of the all-time greats to never win a ring. Like he's got to get a ring. Got to get
At
a
some
ring.
point.
So I'd love to see the Suns win it too.
I know I had friends from Wisconsin that
Mhm.
I was happy for them, but I was really kind of rooting for the Suns because I always CP3 was you know kind of like I mean I always loved the way he played when he was with the Clippers.
Mhm.
I always kind of felt bad for him a little bit because a few times I saw him come out to throw out the first pitch at Dodger games and he actually got booed. And I was like, are you kidding me? This guy's playing for your city, guys. I know he's not a Laker, but it's not his
Yeah.
fault. It's the NBA. It's David Stern's fault that he's not a Laker. So, but
It really is. It
he was
really is.
he was always a good sport about it. He was always a good sport about it. But yeah, so I want to get back to football a little bit right now because I know as we transition to our topic of the day, but I know in our thieves group, you know, salute to the thieves, that you get a little flack, you know, for having several
A
favorite
little.
teams. You know what? I'm like, you know, having gone away from the Rams when they left, and I adopted the Packers and the Dolphins, and whoever was on my fantasy team, I can appreciate that. So, but I
Thank
want to
you.
ask you about two guys. I want
Okay.
to ask you about two teams. So let's start with the Packers.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers did not yesterday said there's no answer on his future yet. What's your guess?
So a lot of people saw the sentimental post that he put on Instagram and were like, "Oh, he's retiring." There's a part of me that for some reason thinks that, like, first off, he's just like, I think he's just a weird dude. Like, I'm coming to the conclusion, Aaron Rodgers is just a weird dude. That's fine. He's really good at throwing the football. Because of that, I actually think that the sentimental post is almost like I'm coming back for one more year. Let's get it done this year kind of thing. So I said probably a month ago that I was 80% sure he was staying, 20%. Oh, did I say? No, I think I said 10% getting traded and 10% retiring.
Okay.
I actually might have said 15% retiring and 5% traded. So I'm sticking with that. I think he's staying in Green Bay. Um, I just think that there's so much talent there, and if they've got a lot of cap restructuring to do. If he does, well, if he doesn't stay, and they do figure out a way to trade him, either way, they've got a lot of cap restructuring to do. I think the best way to use that right now, though, is just go like shove it all into the middle of the table, bring him back for one more year, and go win that championship. Which, I mean, we've seen, we know it's hard to do, but still, I think he's coming back.
And I'm with you. I keep looking at the fact that you just had a unicorn retire, Tom Brady,
Mhm.
and who were the stud quarterbacks in the NFC? You got a bunch of up and coming guys. Stafford's one of the best. You got Stafford, Dak,
Dak and
and
Kyler.
Kyler, and
And do we know if
Rogers.
Kyler's going to play?
Yeah, we'll be talking about him in a bit. We'll be talking about him in a bit. But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, what I don't see it. I don't.
Well,
I'm
and the
like,
other thing for me too, Jorge, is the reason I was I was probably more convinced that he was going to retire is because he was engaged. He had life outside of football prepared and ready to go. So like I feel like if he had won this year, it was done. He was out. Peace, deuces. I'm going to get married and never thinking about football again. But they broke off their engagement. And so there's part of me that's like, all right, I'm just going to focus on football for one more year and go get that championship.
I could see it. I could see it, and if he gets the other championship, I think I had them as the favorite this year. I mean, I
Yeah.
rooted for the Rams, but I was not expecting it. I kept thinking, oh, there's no way they'll win the championship in their own, and I kept thinking they still got to go to Green Bay and win there, and the 49ers did them a favor, so totally did them a favor. Oh, that was nuts. So let's go up to let's go let's kind of stay in the Midwest, go to Ohio, the Browns.
Okay. Yes.
So there's drama around Baker Mayfield, and I keep looking at they keep talking about people and fans and the media keep talking about are they going to upgrade, but I'm like, where are the upgrades available? And I don't see it unless I don't see them going after Rodgers. I don't see them getting
Yeah.
Russell Wilson. I just
Or Deshaun Watson.
or Deshaun. So yeah, you know, is the best decision just to rehab the guy and run it back?
So I think so personally. I don't know if you know this about me, Jorge, but the reason I am a Browns fan is because of Baker Mayfield. I
No,
fell
I
in
didn't
love
know
with
that.
him. Yeah, I fell in love with him his senior year at Oklahoma. Um, my wife's gonna cringe at this, but I identified with him on the field. He always seemed to play with a chip on his shoulder. He's a little guy playing football. I'm a little guy playing basketball. So I identified with him, and I'm peeking over her to look at how much she's laughing at me or cringing at me, but I can't tell. And so I love him. So that he's the reason I'm actually a Browns fan. And then they actually traded for my second favorite player at the time, Odell Beckham Jr.
Mhm.
And I'm not touching on that topic tonight because I don't want to piss people off. But I think that Baker is the answer. Year one, he had Hugh Jackson as a head coach, and then I believe it was Todd Monken that took over as the interim coach his rookie year after
I thought it
Jackson
was
was fired.
Kitchens. I thought it was Kitchens too.
Kitchens was not the interim coach, if I
Oh,
remember correctly, but Kitchens was the head coach in 2019. That was a crapshoot.
oh, that's right. He
So
was the OC.
I don't count that year. And I feel like a lot of people are like, "Oh, Baker sucks," blah blah blah. I'm like, bro, he had Freddie Kitchens as his head coach his second year in the NFL. If I think anybody that had that would suck in that year. Their offensive line couldn't block that year for crap either. So then Stefanski comes in. All right. Year one, Baker looked better, if you ask me. They had a run first offense, but Baker looked better, especially comparatively to the Kitchens year. And then this year would have been year two with Stefanski, which I think is the first time that he's had the same OC and head coach going into the next year. But then he got hurt in week two. And I feel like a ton of people forget that. He tore his labrum in his left shoulder. And do not take this as medical advice, but I haven't confirmed it. But just thinking about like when you're throwing a football, Jorge, if you want to drive all the way through, you've got to pull some torque through with that opposite shoulder. If you've got a torn labrum, you can't do that. Not to the extent that you're used to doing. So he's not able to get the power in the ball that he's used to doing. He had other injuries pop up all year. I feel like if you rehab him, you get him a weapon. And here's the key to me, Jorge. And I tweeted this and I got blown up for it, but he needs someone like a Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams,
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, someone who is a route technician that is going to be open all the time, not because they're just a better athlete or faster than everybody, but because they are creating separation with such precise routes that they're going to be open. And so, like, Garrett Wilson is who I want them to draft this year. I feel like if they could draft Wilson, pair him with Jarvis and DPJ, Hooper, Chubb, and Hunt, like, and then get the offensive line healthy too. Like, the offensive line
Yes.
was hurt this year too. Baker was hurt this year too. Jarvis was hurt this year. Kareem was hurt this year. They were just injured this year, and it ended up being a bad year, I think, because of injuries. And then the drama with Odell, like, I've got my thoughts on that, but I won't share them unless if you twist my arm.
We'll do it offline because we got enough to talk about after this. But I
Sounds
will
good.
say, I'm thankful for the touchdown that he scored in the Super Bowl and the touchdown and since I put him in my DFS lineup that day,
Yeah,
he got me top 10, so made a little money that
attaboy.
day. So
I
good
hate
finish to his.
I hate that he got hurt. Like I really did want
Oh,
him because he was playing so well. I wanted him to finish the game. Um, so I really do hate that he got hurt, and hopefully he will be able to rehab and come back to some extent.
And I put out on Twitter the other day that people are talking about him, sign, what kind of contract he's going to sign, and everybody's talking about a 1-year deal, and I'm like, people taking him taking like a hometown or a discount to stay with the Rams. I'm like, the only way he takes a discount is if somebody gives him a 2-year deal, because I don't see him playing next year. I mean, he got hurt so late. I'm like a year is next Super Bowl, and it's like, what, you're gonna sign him to have him play in the Super Bowl. So that's why I kind of look at that. It's kind of like I compared it to like a pitcher with a Tommy John surgery, who gets signed for 2 years, and it's like low base the first year, and then the second year gets the bigger base when they expect him to be back. So I think I hope so. I think I saw a lot of good in him, but away from the field, the stuff that I heard, that he's a worker, and and the good guy in the clubhouse. That to me was that's why I was rooting for him, and I will forever root for him. So
I think the main issue is he just never really wanted to be in Cleveland.
Probably
he always wanted to be in a bigger market of LA, New York, etc. So that's what I'm going to chalk it up to.
I think he saw the difference. So I hope he comes back. But actually, there's the first player we're going to talk about kind of relates to, is there's a part of that. So I thought it'd be kind of cool. We're still in the shadow of the postseason. So you had is that a torn labrum too?
No, it just felt tight all of a sudden, like it needed a pop.
I've had that too on mine. But yeah, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to look at a series of players and see what does could their ADP have risen, fell based on how they did in the playoffs, or in some cases how the latter part of the season and the playoffs came in. So the first guy I wanted to throw out there, Cooper Kupp, obviously one of the great seasons of all time. And one of the things that I saw was he had such a lead on Devontae Adams as the wide receiver, who was the wide receiver 2. He had a 105-point lead, which was the difference of Devontae Adams to the wide receiver 17, Michael Pittman. So that just shows how incredible a gap that was. Triple crown with the 4th all time. He was great his targets were great in the playoffs. He had 7, 11, 14, and 10. Receiving yards, he went past 100 yards twice. He had 92 in the Super Bowl. Got it, got the 2 touchdowns. Had him in my DFS lineup too, in my lineup. But I mean, his numbers in the playoffs: 33 catches, 470 yards, six touchdowns. He's currently on Fantasy
That's
Pros.
More season than some wide receivers.
Yeah, think about
having a full season.
Yeah, you just double those numbers. You're almost at 1,000 yards, and that's half this. 1,000 yards, almost at 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns in 8 games. But so if he, I was on a show toward the end of December with Pat Fitzmaurice on his show, and he asked me, is it possible that he could be still the wide receiver 1? And I was kind of hesitant, because I was like, you always see when people have those outlier seasons, they have regressed. But then I was just kind of like, is he gonna be in like a 2-3 year run, kind of like Antonio Brown had in the 2010s, where it was like he was justifiably the 101. We're all talking about JT at 102. Kupp is the 109 right now, but could he be justifiably a 102 pick?
Absolutely, especially in redraft. Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. I looking at the show sheet, like I see that some of the things that you have for him as positives, like to why he could get there, is like he's got the same QB, and then different people are leaving from the offense. Like, to me, Cooper Kupp produced even with Jared Goff as his quarterback, right?
Yeah,
it was usually top 10-ish, at least 10 to 20-ish, where he would typically finish. And he had a couple injuries that would take him out, or a couple games that would take him out. But yeah, I think with Kupp and Stafford, this is absolutely 1000% possible. Like, no question. That he could. I mean, I think on the show sheet you've got it. He had 145 catches on 191 targets, 1,900 yards, and 16 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then you ask, like, if he regresses to 125 catches, that's, let's say, 40 less targets, still 150 targets. So then let's say that's what, 200 less yards, maybe 250, still 1,700. And then
Yeah.
let's take away 3 touchdowns. It's 13 touchdowns. Like, he's easily, I think, the 102 at this point, as long as Stafford is the QB.
Yeah, it's hard to learn. It's hard to not think that. I mean, I keep trying to look at it objectively, and it's like, yeah, all I see is like him staying healthy, and with so many running backs having gotten hurt, and some of them still having kind of injury scares. I mean, a lot of people right now, and according to Fantasy Pros ADP, CMC is the 102. But
To
I'm sorry,
get that,
not
like,
ADP.
at this point, so CMC is the 102.
Yeah, in the ECR. Sorry, not ADP.
Oh, man, I can't take him there anymore.
It's
I
hard.
I I can't do it. It's like, yes, when he's in the game, it's 25, 30 points, easy, because he's going to get 100 yards receiving and rushing. But he's not been in enough games over the last 2 years consistently enough for me to be like, yes, it's worth the risk of having him for 3 games of 30 points. But if he misses the other 13, then what's the point?
It's hard. It'd be really hard. I'd love to get him at like number 5. I don't think he's going to get there in redraft at number 5.
I think
But
5 to 8 is a perfect range to take him.
yeah,
If he falls to me there in drafts, I'll take him, no question. But I'm not taking him at 102.
no, that one's rough. No, I'm coming to the party, and actually just a sneak peek next week. We're going to be on this show. We're going to be talking zero RB with a couple of amigos of
Ooh.
ours, Cal Shoemake and Dan Turner. So
Those
they
two.
are they are zealots. They are zero RB zealots. So they're going to try and convert
I'll
me. So I'm more of the
I'll
hero guy.
I'll come support you in the chat for Hero RB and throw shade at them.
Love it. Love it, mi amigo. Well, staying with the Rams, there was such kind of like an incredible comeback for Cam Akers.
Dude.
How amazing was that? Just to get back on the field.
That's a medical miracle. Like, not even lying. Like, you do not see that with an Achilles injury. So, like, props to him for working his butt off and getting back in and being able to play.
And not just that, but I mean, he toted the rock. I mean, he toted the rock in the play. So he came back in week 18, toted the rock 67 times over the 4 games. He had a game against Tampa Bay, one of the best rushing defense, but he ran the ball 24 times. Sony Michel ran it once. He got 41 more carries than Sony Michel over the playoffs. So on the one hand, you're looking at, could this be his entire the backfield his to himself? But on the other hand, is the performance in the playoffs was tough, and he never had more than 55 rushing yards in a game. Obviously, he went up against great great defenses, but the Ram offensive line wasn't great. That's been one of the themes in the running game. I think after the Arizona game, there was some talk, because he had 95 total touches. I mean, total yards in that one. There was some talk, oh, could he be a back end first round pick? But what
Not for
are
me.
the odds? Yeah. What's your feeling on him?
Oh, this is one of those things that's probably going to get me shot in FF Twitter. I've never been a huge Cam Akers guy, to be completely honest with you. Even last year, I was fading him. I was vindicated, if you will, by injury, and I hate that, because he's a young kid. He's got a bright future ahead of him. But I'm just not. I've never been on the Cam Akers train. McVay is still too. want to say wishy-washy on when he kind of is going to switch a running back.
Yeah.
He likes to go with the hot hand, and he will feed someone over and over and over again. We saw it with Akers, I feel like. My concern is that the production wasn't necessarily there as we expected, because he's coming back from a severe injury, to where I'm wondering if there's question marks or there's doubts in any kind of any of the Rams coaching personnel, to where they keep Sony Michel and they plug him in here or there. They plug Darrell Henderson in here or there. Or hell, they go spend another random second round draft pick on a running back. Like, I don't know if I trust Akers and McVay enough to really want to spend that high of a draft capital on here. Where did you have an ADP on him? It doesn't look like it.
I'm actually looking that up while you were talking.
Okay, yeah. I'll keep rambling then. And then from a passing standpoint, I don't know what his targets were like in the playoffs, or any of the running backs' targets were like in the playoffs, but it just feels like to me there's too many question marks for me to really like Akers.
He only had about 9 he had 9 targets during the playoffs.
9 targets. Okay,
So
yeah. So
not big.
I just, yeah, I'm never been a huge Cam Akers guy. Not really gonna take the risk on Akers there. Throw that question up. Did you see it in the comments?
See. Oh,
I'm 1000% Dobbins on this one. I love J.K. Dobbins.
I do think I would rather draft Dobbins, much as I like
reason
Akers.
For that is, yeah, like for me, like Dobbins, when he was playing towards the latter end of his rookie year, he was averaging 6 yards a carry. And then last year, when he and all the other Ravens running backs were hurt, they decided to throw the ball more. And Lamar, I feel like, probably advanced as a passer. I feel like in 2022, or at least I'm hoping in 2022, the Ravens offense is some kind of mix between the past 2 years, where in 2020, they had 555 some odd rush attempts. And this year they had to be a lot more passing heavy because they didn't have any healthy running backs. If you put that in the middle, that's still going to give Dobbins probably 200 carries and some room for some pass catching upside. And he is so good at breaking tackles because he's so shifty that I absolutely love J.K. Dobbins.
So I'm looking at the ECR right now, and Dobbins is RB 21, which I think is going to creep up as we get closer to the season, because I think there's going to be some hype around him, and I think there's some guys that are ahead of him who are guys like Leonard Fournette, who I think will come down. But
unless he goes somewhere that's actually good for fantasy,
right? Exactly. That's going to be that's going to be a show in about 3 weeks. You know, after the 16th, I can't wait. This is what, like, I love NFL free agency because it's like over in 2 days. Everybody, all the studs are signed and everything. Major League Baseball, you could have 5 months of waiting for guys. So it drives me nuts.
I remember. Oh, when was it? Was it 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago when all the pitchers were like, nobody was signing, and it was like, what's going on? And like the Cubs needed pitchers. I was like, go sign somebody.
Please go get one of these guys.
And they were just like, everyone was just sitting on their hands. I was like, what is going on?
Well, about this question, Akers is the RB 36 on Fantasy Pros ECR.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's going to come up. I think that's going to come up because I think
At
Sony
that
Michel
ADP,
will sign.
I'd take him.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes.
But I don't think I'm going to get him there.
I don't think so. I think he's going to start if he has a healthy off season, and if the Rams don't invest any more than Darrell Henderson, I think they'll stay there. Dobbins will also have been a year out from his own ACL surgery, so that's a lot of times. Our buen amigo of the show, Dr. Edwin Porras, says it usually takes about a year for it to be fully fully formed
stable and whatnot.
the
Yeah.
ACL. Usually he said it's usually the second year after that they're better, but that they're more back to normal. But it does take the 12 months, and he'll be, I think by the start of the season, he'll be about 13 months out from that one. So
Yeah.
so Akers, I think he's going to rise from 36, but I think he might.
I'm shocked it's that low.
Yeah, I think he might end up in that RB dead zone or something like that. But so the guy we had on the I put on the picture, our thumbnail for this, Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty. So many nicknames for him. It felt like the coronation of a superstar, and I was telling someone before the Super Bowl, I said, this kind of reminded me of when John Elway went to the Super Bowl the first time. Everybody wanted him to win, but he went up against a hell of a defense in that 86 the 86 New York Giants. And, now Burrow, his ECR is QB5.
Yeah.
And I look at that. I mean, I loved what he did. I love the potential. But he did throw 5 touchdowns in 4 playoff games. Not the best. And he surpassed 300 yards once out of that. And let me give you a list of quarterbacks that he's going in front of. Lamar Jackson. Yeah, that one to me, it's like, really? Rodgers, Dak Prescott, and Matthew Stafford. So we'll talk about Dak in a little bit, but is that one feeling? Are you feeling a little lightheaded on that one?
Yes and no. Like, I get it, and I might do it, but at the same time, kind of like you said, like Lamar, his rushing floor is so high that like you can't really pass up on that. I don't feel like. And I know that we focused a lot on Joe Burrow's offensive line, and I would still like to say that I think they should have drafted Penei Sewell. Like I know that's a dumb take, or a lot of people will say it's a dumb take, but I still think they should have drafted Penei Sewell. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are both extremely talented. Joe Mixon's extremely talented. That right there gives you enough weapons to get into the playoffs, I think. And Burrow is talented enough, I think, to lead the team. If you give them like someone like Sewell, because here's the thing, Burrow still led the lead in sacks. He was sacked the most in the NFL. So while, yes, Jamar Chase is a huge asset and is as good, if not better than advertised, I still think they should have taken Sewell because we saw it in the Super Bowl. We saw it in the playoffs. He was sacked 9 times against the Titans. You've got to protect your quarterback.
And then 7 against the Rams.
The game is won in the trenches. Shout out to my cousin, the J-Boy Show. He talks about it on his show all the time. The game is won in the trenches. Offensive and defensive line is going to win you the game every single time. And we saw it in the Super Bowl. They weren't able to protect him. Aaron Donald is a monster. So I think Burrow at QB5 is not necessarily too high. I think it's a reasonable price. I think at that point you're kind of in a pick'em spot to be able to. Yeah, thank you, Albert. God.
Yeah. Oh, that hurts.
God.
Oh my God, Dios mío, that hurts.
Yeah, I think it was. I want to say it was like 49 or 59 in the regular season.
It was 50.
Good.
It was 50 on the nose.
Okay. Yeah. So, good Lord, he got sacked 20 times in the postseason. Jesus. But that's my point right there.
Yeah.
Like, if you protect him, he's talented enough that he's going to be able to get the ball to his playmakers. And his playmakers are talented enough that if they've got tight enough coverage, they'll make the plays, I think. So I would have taken Sewell personally, but I think the Bengals will be back. They've got to improve that offensive line, though.
I think they're going to be able to, invest in the offensive line. They'll use some cap space, and they're a team. that I expect to spend on the offensive line and on the at free agency and again at the draft. So I think it's gonna very.
I mean, the funny thing is, Jorge, thinking back to my comment about like offensive and defensive line wins you the games, they were one of the winners in free agency because they spent on Trey Hendrickson.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I want to say Sam Hubbard too. I can't remember if they spent on him or if he was already there.
He was the year
But
before.
okay, yeah. So they spent on D-line in free agency, and we saw like that was one of their calling cards this year. Was their D-line was really, really good. So you gotta build up that interior.
I will say, another friend of the show, Yasmine Quintana, who was my Bengals, my Bengals fan, and I did apologize during our show because she and I had an exchange before where I said you got to get Sewell, and she's like, no, I want Chase, and so I apologized to her because. But I did say you got to go get that guy some help because you got to keep Joe Shiesty upright because that's the most important thing. There's like that graphic where, where
I know exactly
Twitter,
what you're talking about.
it's like throw the ball, but it's like, oh yeah, and he can't throw the ball if he's,
on his back.
On his back, exactly. But,
it's like Burrow and no O-line throwing to Chase, or Burrow with an O-line throwing to anyone else. That's kind of my point.
Oh, big time. Well, one guy who was nuclear, Gabriel Davis.
Yeah.
He had that nuclear game, and I don't think ECR has caught up to him yet. I mean, he had that nuclear game against the Chiefs where he scored 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes. He ended up with 200. He ended up with 8 catches on 10 targets, 201 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, that's just ridiculous right there. That's like one of the Jamar Chase crazy games, muy loco. But he's currently the wide receiver 38, and he's behind Ayuk. He's behind OBJ. He'll pass that. He'll Cordarrelle Patterson and Claypool. That game alone could it have made his ADP rise, especially if Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley walk.
I'm shocked that it hasn't already. If it has,
I think so.
I could definitely see him going up, especially if Sanders and Beasley walk. I think he's a good prospect. And obviously he had a hell of a game against the Chiefs. I mean, anyone that scores 4 touchdowns in a game, like, they got to be doing something right, And I was able to watch, and I've seen recently some replays of that game. His route running is really good. And that's something that really gets me going, especially from a fantasy perspective. Like, I want those guys that are going to be able to create separation with the route running alone, not just with their athletic ability. And he was able to do that. And the 1 touchdown where he fell down in the back of the end zone, he put the defender on the ground with how fast and quick and sharp his route was. So do I think the talent is there? Absolutely. Do I know if the production is going to be there to continue to match this ascend that we see in ADP? I don't know yet. Like I said, the talent is there. It's just going to be a matter of if he can consistently produce in the regular season. Because his first 2 years, shout out to John Hesterman, his stat line was exactly identical. He had the exact same rookie year and the exact same second year. So there was no growth in theory from a stats perspective. So if he gets thrown into that true wide receiver 2 role for Buffalo, is he able to handle the pressure? Is kind of where I'm at. So what I'd be doing is, if I have Gabriel Davis, is trying to sell him, because I think you can capitalize on that increase in value that you're getting. The problem is most people are like, oh, but you're just selling him because he had a good playoff run. And you're like, yeah, I am actually. But like, I like Gabriel Davis. So like, if I was able to get him and not have to pay something outlandish, I'd do it, because I think he's worth having on your team. It's just, there's a couple question marks for me that I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to fully buy in that, like, yes, he's the wide receiver 2 on Buffalo.
Yeah, I
Did
don't
that
know
answer
if
your question?
yeah, and I'm kind of with you because and plus Dawson Knox is there. I mean,
Mhm.
he's going to be getting plenty of targets, and obviously Diggs is still the alpha dog. Diggs is going to be
Yeah,
9 to 10 targets every game.
absolutely.
I'm emboldened by the fact that he had 10 plus targets in 2 of his last 3 games, and those are the only times he had 10 targets in the season. So I just I think he's going to jump from 38, when it
Mhm.
comes to redraft. But man, I just don't know if I don't know if I'm going to go nuts, trading like in dynasty. I don't know if I'm trading a number 1 pick for him.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely not.
that seems very rich. Muy rico, muy rico.
Muy
Um,
rico.
so let's talk. A guy who became rico, even though he was a 6th round draft pick, Elijah Mitchell.
Ugh.
And
I only say ugh because I have Trey Sermon.
I know. I'll tell you, my championship team in my toughest league, in my toughest home
Mhm,
league, 14 team league. I picked Trey Sermon at I was the 14 team. I was picked number 13, so
mhm.
picked number 5th round. Picked Sermon. 3 picks later, grabbed Debo Samuel. So so
Wow.
so it was just like so
Wow.
I was like to get Sermon before Samuel. I mean Sermon who we ended up cutting, and it's just like, but yeah, we just and we were kind of like,
Wow.
oh wow, I'm glad we got, and we were feeling like we needed a running back when we got Sermon. But oh, and by the way, we missed having Cooper Kupp by a pick. He got it went in the 3rd round. It went Woods, Cup, and then we were stuck with DJ Moore. So and we're talking about, that's a big drop right there.
Yeah.
But
Dang.
that team won the chip, so it's all
Attaboy.
good. But Elijah Mitchell, um, some people were able to pick him up on game, when they found out that that Sermon was inactive and that he was going to be the starter. A lot of people grabbed him, where they could, and obviously I blew my fab on one team. His rushing attempts in the playoffs were 27, 17, and 11. 11 being the last game against the Rams. But to me, the thing that has me kind of wondering, Debo had 27 total rush attempts in the playoffs. The
Okay.
only other running back to get any rushing attempts was Kyle Juszczyk. And I don't know if I spelled his name right on the show, Jock, but
You did.
yeah,
I'm
but
pretty sure
yeah,
you did.
he had 2 during the playoffs.
Okay.
Right now he's the RB19 and number 45 overall in ECR. And we talked about Sermon. He had 0 rush attempts after week 11.
Mhm.
I'm kind of like, sitting there. I don't know what to look at
So
him because there's so
45
many.
overall,
Yeah,
right? That's what, middle of third,
early
late
4th,
third, early
uh,
fourth? Yeah.
early 4th.
Yeah.
No, kind of like middle of the 4th,
Um,
and a 12 team.
yeah. I think I that's tough. I think I would take him if I could get him in the 5th. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes
Like,
sense. It makes sense.
I I think the value is there if you get him in the 5th. I think at 45 and RB19, I don't know. I think I'm definitely comfortable taking him as RB19. But the 45 numbers, what's throwing me?
Let me give you some wide receivers who are in that range: Tyler
Okay.
Lockett, Brandon
Okay.
Cooks, Michael Pittman, Hunter Renfro, Scary Terry. They are all after
Oh,
Elijah Mitchell,
I would take Terry over Mitchell every day.
especially if he gets a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. Renfro, I'm probably not taking over Mitchell. Oh, and who did you get before Renfro?
It was Lockett, Brandon Cooks. Michael Pittman.
Pittman, I think I would take over Mitchell.
Yeah, even with Carson Wentz, I mean, this guy
Yeah.
had a really good. He had over 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
So, and I
I'm
think
not
Carson
taking
Wentz.
Lockett. The yeah, he's just too boomer bust. for me. I feel like never know when it's going to be a really good Tyler Lockett game or just a okay Tyler Lockett game. So I'm
Yeah.
I think I would take Mitchell over Lockett for sure.
It's, I mean, it's tough. The thing about him, he missed some games. He missed 5 games this season. So
Mhm.
he still had 963 yards in those 12 games.
That's
You
the
know,
impressive part, if you ask me.
that is, it's kind of like he's 5'10". He's not the biggest guy. He's 5'10", about 200 pounds. I mean, it's kind of Austin Eckler size. Eckler was able to, stay healthy. Only 20 targets this season. But yeah, it's kind of like, does Debo kind of eat into the rushing attempts again next year? Does Trey
Mhm.
Sermon actually get resurrected for those who have him on Dynasty?
Please.
It's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to see him run it back.
Well, yeah, I also don't trust Kyle Shanahan as a coach
Yeah,
um, to really use one running back the entire season. So I feel like this year with Mitchell, when he was doing it, it was kind of an anomaly.
I think so. I think it might have just been. I think Trey Sermon was so much in the doghouse that he just didn't want to trust him. And then it was
Yeah.
just like, okay, I'm just gonna, because Mitchell was like over 20 carries for several games at the end of the season. So he was, but yeah, it's gonna be tough to feel like they're gonna do that because it's remember how long ago was it that Raheem Mostert was everybody was going nuts for him the next year, and
Exactly.
and then all of a sudden it was, yeah, and the next year he got a little hurt and somebody else was taking over. So adios
Exactly.
mio. Well, let's go to Derrick Henry. This one will be kind of quick because he only had the one game, and to me, it's kind of like the thing. He was still the RB 22 on the season, even though he missed 9 games, which just shows 937 yards and 10 touchdowns in less than half a season.
Unreal.
It's sick. It's sick. I was kind of like, much as an Eric Dickerson fan as I am, I wanted to see Derrick Henry break the rushing record. But he came back from the foot fracture to play in the divisional round against the Bengals. 20 carries, 62 yards, not a big game. Deonta Forman had 66 yards. He looked rusty, but no apparent setbacks. It looks like he's full speed ahead and he's going to have a normal offseason, did not have the wear and tear of, getting hit 400 times. He's currently the RB2 and number 2 overall. He's going into his age 28 season. If he has a healthy off season, we talked about, there are people out there who, we talked about Cooper Kupp at the 102, but you know, how do you think people? Do you think people can be justified going Henry at number 2? That one,
Yeah, I
the,
think so. I would definitely take him at 3 or 4 too. Um, if he has a healthy offseason, no question. Dude is I don't think he's human. Like
I,
I
I
really don't. I don't
I
think he's
think so.
human. Um, I mean, he's built like a Mack truck. And we talk about like the age apex with running backs and fantasy players or football players in general. And running backs typically at 28, they can typically produce at that RB1, RB2 range, and then they fall off a cliff.
Right.
I don't see that happening as and obviously there's outliers. Like I mean, Adrian Peterson played until this year, I think, and he was 36. Frank
Yep.
Gore played this year, I think he was 35. So or 38 even. So there's obviously outliers, and I think Henry's going to be one of those outliers to where he will most likely produce for a couple more years at a very high level. I mean, just trying to imagine tackling the dude being 6'3", 250 and being able to move like he does. Like that's just ugh, not no, it's not something I want to think about ever. Um, so I really, really think that Henry is definitely well worth a top 5 pick for you.
I do think so. I think, and plus the other part is, I'm a big believer in, you only have so many bullets.
Yeah.
There's only so many hits you're going to take. And he saved himself a couple of his first 2 years. He did not take a
Yeah.
lot of hits. So, that
I think
DeMarco
that's
Murray.
another thing too that will help with him not hitting that age apex, and being one of those guys that falls off at 28.
So we got two quarterbacks to close it out. Dak Prescott of the other team that you also like, the Cowboys.
Yes, sir.
So very pedestrian game in the wild card round against the 49ers, 23 of
Mhm.
42 for 254 yards, one touchdown, one interception. There's a ton being made of that run at the end of to run out the clock. But let's keep in mind the 49er defense, played really well. And they, even though the game was in Dallas, they made Prescott look only okay. He was a QB6 in ADP last year, currently in ECR for 22. He's QB8. Had a really good season, but he had that huge week 18 that didn't help anybody unless you were playing in a week 18, unless you played him in DFS or or you played him in your or you were for some reason playing in a week 18 championship.
Which those shouldn't exist. If you're in those
Please
leagues, leave or light them on
Yes.
fire, one of the two.
Yes. Adios. Say adios. Say adios, adios, adios. There are, start your own league, just do whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at him and as we talked about, he's behind Burrow, and are people, because there's so much high and low with the Cowboys, because they're so polarizing, they're so popular. Everything they do is, it's all over. It's all over social media. But does Dak possibly? At QB8, could he be a bargain this year? Could he have been knocked down because of that wild card game?
Yeah, I mean, even at QB8, I think he's a value because his ceiling, we've seen it, is literally QB2.
Yeah,
his ceiling is a top 2 quarterback. So yeah, I have no problem drafting him at QB6, QB7, QB8, QB9, QB10 if he falls that far. Absolutely. I'm actually in a Devi startup draft right now, and it's a 10-man league, and I took him at 109. Which, give me 2 seconds to pull that up, and I'll tell you who went ahead of me. I'm actually on the clock in that league too, but we're not.
Oh, geez. Hopefully it's a slow clock.
Yeah, it is. Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Murray, Lamar, and Burrow all went ahead of me. And then I took Dak at 109. So, and then 2 young guys actually went off the clock after me. Trey Lance and then Justin Fields at 205. So, yeah, I'm fine taking Dak at, again, the 6, 7, 8, or QB9. Because I think his ceiling is so high that he'll be fine. Even if they I don't think they're going to lose Jarwin, Cooper, and Gallop. I think worst case scenario, they lose 2 of them. Best case scenario, I think they keep all 3, obviously. But then realistically, I think they end up keeping 2 of them. Whether it's Schultz, I think it'll be Schultz.
Yeah, I don't think they let Schultz go.
And then Cooper, Gallop, really. I'd like to see Gallop personally. I love Amari, but I want to see him kind of. I don't know. I want to see him thrive again in a different offense. He's thrived in the Cowboys offense, but there's too many balls to go around, or too many mouths to feed in that offense with CD, Schultz, and Gallop and Cooper. So
yeah. Well, the thing with Gallop, he had the ACL tear so late in the season.
So late, yeah.
And it's so crazy. Guys like Gallop, Godwin, all these guys that had the and OBJ had the ACL surgeries.
Tear.
Those are tough. As we saw, like David Bakhtiari got hurt, and it's different positions, but he never played the whole season, and that was tough. But that one I think Cooper is the guy who comes back. I think it's Cooper and Schultz, and they probably let Gallop go. But either way, that's a big
either way,
3
they
with
have
CD
3
Lamb.
wide receiver ones currently. So yeah.
Oh man. Well, let's close it out with Kyler Murray. So, as you mentioned, we were going to be chatting. We got chatting. So, hey, you know what? Let's finish strong. There's a rough wild card game against the Rams, 19-34 for 137 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So just rough. Only ran for 6 yards on 2 carries. So, he had that late injury where he missed 3 games. He was the QB3 through week 7 when they were 7-0. But he was only QB4 in weeks 13 to 17 when, after he came back from his injury. I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised at that. There was a huge game in there where he threw for 383 yards, but final stats, he was the QB10 overall, 24 touchdown passes. He ended up with 423 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. Second year in a row that he's coming off injuries, that he got slowed by injuries. And the rough last game, the social media drama. He's currently the QB4, so he's ahead of Burrow in there. I actually, I still got egg on my face for making my QB1 last year, but I would have liked to have seen him not get hurt. But with a couple of dinged up years, the social media drama, and the rough finish to the season, is that going to knock him down a little bit? Could it even make some people go Lamar or and maybe possibly Burrow ahead of him? I don't see that's one thing.
I'd take Dak over him.
Wow.
I really would. Yeah, he's great when he plays. Obviously, like you've had on the show sheet, he finished QB10. Was QB3 through 7 weeks, but he's tiny, man. He's my size. But I've got 100 pounds on him. So
Barkley style.
Yeah, exactly. Round amount of rebound. More like round amount of 3-point is what I am. But with Kyler, like it's really hard for me to justify taking him when you can go Lamar, you can go Burrow, you can go Dak over him and have something that's more consistent. I feel like, at least from a health standpoint. Like I know we've got a smaller sample size with Burrow, and then Lamar missed more games this year than he has, but other than that, Lamar's typically been pretty healthy. So I'd be more than comfortable taking those other guys over him. I'm not saying that I don't like Kyler Murray. I don't think he's talented. It's just I could see why other people would take other players over him. And with the drama that's there and the free agent exodus that they have coming, potentially.
Oh, yeah. AJ Green, Christian Kirk, Zach Ertz, all free agents. You got James Conner and Edmonds and D-Hop coming off a knee surgery. So I mean, it's like Rondale Moore is your healthy guy returning. How amazing is that?
And he's not much bigger than Kyler, so.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, so that one's kind of tough. I could see him coming down a little bit. I could see him coming down a little bit, but oh man. Oh well, Shane, this has been awesome as always. I love being on a show with you, even texting, whatever. Just love it. You're one of my favorite people. As we would say in Spanish, esto fue un gran éxito. But right now, can you? By the way, also I appreciate you playing hurt. So 90%. I'll take 90% Shane any day. But
awesome. Appreciate it.
We talked a little bit before. Can you share the Familia community? Anything else you got in the hopper coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thanks for having me on. I'll come on anytime you need me, Jorge. Just give me a call, shoot me a text message. I only need a couple hours notice. And really that's just to make sure that I'm not recording something else. As for playing hurt, hopefully I'll be better next time too. And then, so follow me on Twitter at FFShaneB. Nightcap coming out next week will be round 2. No, What came out today? Yeah, it'll be. I don't know. It'll be round 2, I think, of the mock that I did with Nick.
Oh, that's
Or
right.
it'll be the first. It'll be an episode with
I
Robbie.
think you had. I think you had.
Um,
I think you had round 1 this week. That
Okay.
came out.
Yeah, then it should be round 2 next week. And then Robbie is coming on. And I've got some big guests coming on for the nightcap, including fellow thief Dave Kluge, sorry. And then some big guests, some thieves coming on for collective knowledge over the next month or so. So just make sure you follow the Fantasy Nightcap on Twitter at @FF_collective as well on Twitter. And that kind of does it. You'll find all my content there.
Yeah, don't
And then
forget.
Polly's Playoff is
Yes.
pinned. The registration is pinned to my Twitter account.
In fact, I'm going to grab that and put it in the YouTube video, at the bottom of the YouTube video and everywhere. So, familia, eso es todo for our show. Once again, muchas gracias to our guest, Shane Barrett. Also, please make sure that you're giving us a like and subscribe on YouTube. And special thanks to Anchor for being our hosting network, for putting us on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure original content, familiaffb.com. You can find me, Jorge Martin 17. There we go. And also Familia FFB on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Otra vez, thank you, Shane. And remember, everybody, todos somos familia. Salud.
Salud.